I've got Destiny with Sean from Better Media here to help educate me on something that I don't know too much about, but I know it's going to be a big focus over the next couple of years for Amazon because they're really releasing a lot of stuff, especially at their recent unboxing event. And that is on another three-letter acronym. There are so many of them in the Amazon world, but now we got another one, AMC. So first of all, Destiny, what does that stand for? And can you tell us a little bit about it?
AMC is Amazon Marketing Cloud. Now, the technical definition is it's a clean room. What that means for us is it is a place to store all of your data, not just your advertising data, but your organic and retail data as well. And then you can access that data for information that we've never had before. So within Advertising Console, if you have an AMC instance, you can log in. Now, the problem with it is in the past few years, when it was first rolled out, you really needed to understand SQL in order to access the data that was living in AMC, which made it really difficult for brands to scale. Not only that, but you also had to use DSP in order to access the data that was living within AMC, another acronym, of course. But at the most recent unbox, Amazon had two really big updates. One of them was that AMC was now going to be available for those who were spending just on PPC. So the majority of the brands that are going to be listening to this today can now access the data within AMC, and that you don't necessarily need to know SQL in order to drive value from AMC. So I think those are the two biggest updates. We can also talk about what that actually means and what's valuable, but I'll pause there to see if you have any other questions.
I know it's going to be available for more people now, but like historically, what have your clients or people you interact with gotten the most like bang for their buck out of it? Like what are they using it most for?
So when it comes to AMC, I like to consider that there are two things that are really, really powerful. Not everyone needs both of them, but it's just easy to remember. AMC gives you access to analytics, which is a lot of what we're going to talk about today, and access to audiences. On our end, I think there's a lot of things that are pretty powerful for brands. So the number of times I've been asked about, hey, do my sponsored brands actually drive sales, or does sponsored display work? It's probably one of the top asked questions when it comes to PPC. Within AMC, we can now do things like understand our ad type overlap. So you can log into an AMC dashboard, you can access the analytics and see that, hey, when a customer is exposed to both my sponsored product ad and my sponsored brand ad, their likelihood of converting is much, much higher. Now, some people may ask why, and it's because if you're a customer on Amazon, frequency matters. So the more ads you are served and the more valuable those ads are, for example, sponsored brand ads have an image and copy, which can increase your likelihood of conversion. You can actually see that in the ad type overlap report directly within AMC. There's quite a few other features. I mean, it's truly, I would say, limitless what can be accessible. But the other few things I would say are really important is anyone who's ever been wanting their cost per acquisition, their ad strategy performance by funnel, whether it's awareness, consideration, conversion, or even their new to brand analysis, all of that can be available directly within AMC, which is really cool and can be really powerful when it comes to understanding how your ads are working together.
Now that Helium 10 Atomic is kind of with most of the plans and not a separate add-on anymore, a lot of Helium 10 members now have access to Atomic, and AMC is coming and is inside of Atomic. So if I already have access to Atomic, what would you suggest is the first thing that I should do, at least just to look at once I start getting into AMC?
The two biggest things that I personally think are really valuable is the ad type overlap, as mentioned, because then you can start to understand maybe my sponsored brand ads are a little bit more valuable than I originally expected. Or if you're running sponsored display retargeting, you can start to understand how that retargeting is improving the conversion rate of your sponsored product ad. That's really important. The second big one that I've loved diving into is the conversion path. So if you listen to a lot of podcasts and webinars, something that comes up frequently is the path to purchase is not linear. And what that basically means is when someone types in a keyword into Amazon, if someone types in blue pin, do they view my sponsored brand video ad first and then they click on my sponsored product ad and then they see my sponsored display retargeting ad, right? That's something we all talk about and that Amazon always presents. And sometimes brands are like, no, they click on the ad and they buy. With AMC, you can actually see that ad type conversion path. And that's something that's immediately accessible within Adtomic. You can see that conversion and how much higher your conversion rate is when they're exposed to multiple ad types. So it's insanely powerful in my opinion.
Can you think of a specific experience where somebody used, a client or yourself used this AMC data and was able to save money or make a noticeable shift, or give a scenario of how, just to like help people understand like the power of this data and what they're going to be able to do?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm taking a look right now at one of the brands that I have in Adtomic. Let me see if I can pull this information. And one of the first things I can see is when I'm only running sponsored product ads, when a customer only sees sponsored product ads, that's it. My conversion rate is actually less than 1% of total conversion rate. But when that same customer is exposed to sponsored brands and sponsored display as well, that conversion rate jumps to 10%. That's insane. That's a huge conversion rate jump. Now, at the end of the day, that pool of buyers is quite a bit smaller because sponsored products, as we all know, takes up the majority of page one. So it's much more likely that a customer only clicks on a sponsored product ad. But when they see that sponsored brand ad as well, again, consider how much video is educational and can increase your likelihood of conversion. And then when it's followed up with that sponsored display ad to retarget them, that conversion rate makes a major, major jump and increases the likelihood of someone buying. Because again, it's not a one click and a one purchase scenario. Most customers actually scroll around Amazon and need to be exposed to those other ad types before they make a purchase.
Yeah, that's really important. Like until now, we've kind of anecdotally said things like that. Like, hey guys, yes, you can have your product targeting ads, your keyword ads, and you can just look at the ACoS. But then, some of your sponsored brand ads, your sponsored display, your video ads, you might not see the numbers, but you got to look at things holistically. Customers need to maybe see a brand like a few times before they're really inclined to purchase. But we were just saying stuff like that. We weren't like giving exact, data like, hey, Amazon is showing you this and that to like prove this theory. But now with AMC, you could literally see the difference. That kind of conversion rate is kind of a crazy conversion rate there. So just looking to the future now, now that kind of like what's on the roadmap of AMC, what's coming, what's eventually going to get into Adtomic, why don't you whet the appetite of people out there? What, like maybe 6 months or a year from now, what are people, just regular Amazon brands, and not like 9-figure brands, like some of the huge companies out there, but what are regular sellers like me going to be able to actually do with AMC that I have never been able to do before?
Oh, this is the exciting part, in my opinion. And I've tread lightly because it is going to take some time to build out, both internally within Amazon, but also for the SaaS providers and the brands. When I mentioned AMC earlier, I said there was 2 things that are incredibly exciting: analytics, which we just discussed, but also audiences. So Amazon keeps track of all of the audience information that we've always wanted. So if you're used to advertising on Meta or on Google, you typically are able to pull in behavioral insights and demographic insights. AMC is going to allow us to do really similar. And the future of AMC, especially within an incredibly advanced tool, is going to allow us to make bid adjustments based off those audience insights for sponsored products and sponsored brands. So as an example, let's take something like last 365 days, who has added to cart but not purchased? Maybe they forgot to check out. We're going to be able to put those audience insights into a campaign and increase our bid to targeted audiences. So you can think about how granular we can get there. We could also say something along the lines of who's purchased twice in the last 365 days, but maybe not a third time, right? If we're selling supplements or something that's repeat purchased, we're going to be able to create a campaign and be very specific around that targeting. So it's no longer just about targeting on the search term. We're going to be layering in this level of behavioral that can be really powerful. And think about how advantageous this could be for smaller brands. You don't just want to target everyone searching for a blue pin. I want to get really specific and granular on that audience. That's going to be a huge competitive advantage because a lot of the large brands have 400 to 500 SKUs. They're not going to be able to go that deep. Mid-size and small brands are going to be able to have a heyday with this because it's going to allow them to be a lot more targeted, which means higher conversion rates, which means a better ROAS, a better ACOS.
All right. Well, everybody, I hope you're as excited about me about learning more about AMC and starting to get to use it. If you don't have Helium 10 Diamond Plan, make sure to go ahead and get it so you can get access to some of these AMC features that we've been talking about today. Thanks a lot, Destiny, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you more about this subject.